The war in Ukraine has stretched far beyond anyone's expectations, including the Kremlin's leader. From Moscow, Vladimir Putin has watched his nation suffer unimaginable losses. His army faces failure after failure, and Ukraine, much smaller and with limited resources, has not only defended itself but has begun striking back. The consequences hit Russia's economy hard, and Putin's influence on the world stage begins to crumble. Yet, he remains stubborn, refusing to seek peace or sit at the negotiating table. Why would a leader so battered by defeat cling to war? On the surface, it seems illogical. Surely, Putin would be eager to end the conflict by any means necessary. But he cannot. Admitting defeat would be a blow to his pride. For Putin, pride and control are everything. He's obsessed with projecting strength, never showing weakness, never admitting mistakes. During the summer of 2025, when Russia crossed the terrible milestone of losing over 1 million soldiers, Putin insisted everything was progressing as planned. He claimed that no soldier had died in vain, even as the costs mounted and the war's toll became impossible to ignore. Despite his confident proclamations, the reality is clear: this war is draining resources, costing lives, and becoming more unsustainable by the day. Leaders worldwide have wondered why he refuses to negotiate, why he persists when the costs are so high. The answer lies in a complex web of motivations, none of them simple or straightforward. Multiple factors influence Putin's refusal to step back. Understanding these reasons reveals much about his motivations, and about how the war might unfold in the future. Imagine a world where a leader spins illusions of victory, even as the ground trembles under relentless horror. In our last segment, we uncovered why Vladimir Putin stubbornly clings to this endless conflict in Ukraine. Despite staggering losses that echo through hollow defeats, he rejects peace, baffled experts everywhere. Now, dive deeper into the labyrinth of his mind, where pride clashes with punishing reality. Shocking fact: did you know Vladimir Putin's supposed special operation has ravaged far beyond the Donbass, turning vibrant cities into crumbling graveyards, with over 1 million lives shattered? Feel the acrid bite of smoke lingering in the air, the distant rumble of missiles slicing through serene skies, palms slick with the sweat of terror as shadows of drones cast ominous warnings on terrified faces. Humiliating Ukraine was hyped as protection, but this imperial hunger reveals a chilling twist. Can true power come from conquering a neighbor's very soul, or is it just a masquerade crumbling under its own weight? 342 characters, experts worldwide have dissected Putin's every move, discovering a tangle of motives driving his warlike fury. It's not just one spark, not a fleeting whim that keeps the killing going. Several heavy currents swirl together, shaping this nightmare into something unbreakable. Consider these truths. 4 core reasons chain Putin to the battlefield, refusing any whisper of truce. Let's unravel the first one, a revelation that stuns with its naked ambition. Picture the scene back when the invasion ignited. Putin painted it as a noble shield for his kin in Ukraine's eastern fringes. He railed against imaginary Ukrainian Nazis, brand smeared like blood across innocent lands. The horror, he claimed, was 8 years of relentless torment, a so-called genocide pushed by Kyiv's cruel regime. The goal? Defend the downtrodden, demilitarize a twisted foe, and hunt war criminals who've stained hands with Russian blood. Troop movements echoed his fiery words, but the mask slipped fast. He pinpointed 4 key territories as his sacred targets: Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. In September 2022, with fanfare and false pomp, Putin seized them officially. Loyal puppets were propped up, declaring these lands eternally Russian. Cheers rang out, but listen to the dissonance: boots have stomped into forbidden zones like Kiev, Kharkiv, and Sumy. Drones were overhead like angry hornets, missiles hissed through the night, exploding in bursts of fiery death. Citizens cower in rubble, inhaling the choking dust of devastation, skin bruised by falling debris. These strikes hammer places untouched by his fable of eastern atrocities. Pure aggression, painted as mercy. Over time, Putin's voice evolved, drip by drip. Early talks fixated on those 4 regions, a narrow tale of liberation. But whispers grew louder, ambitions bloating into voracious appetites. He hinted at swallowing Ukraine whole, a conquest far beyond mere borders. The pinnacle moment arrived at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. In June 2020-25, Putin stood tall, voice booming across screens. "I've repeated it often, Russians and Ukrainians are one people," he declared, eyes gleaming with possession. "In that light, all of Ukraine belongs to us." A thunderclap of shock rippled through analysts who'd long suspected his shadow game. Could this be the jolt that humbles empires, exposing a dictator's fragile ego teetering on the edge of madness? Amid the clangor of failing battles, his grand dreams could shatter like glass under an enemy's heel, forcing a reckoning no pride can cloak. Yet, in this haze of hubris, what's next? Will he gamble everything on a conquest that mocks his own crumbling throne, or awaken to the abyss before it's too late? Stay tuned to uncover Reason 2, a fortress of lies that blinds him, twisting truths into chains of deception, where every report drips with fear and betrayal. The previous speech hinted at Russia's deeper ambitions beyond the initial justification. While Putin publicly framed the conflict as a mission to protect Russian-speaking people, behind closed doors, his plans stretch much farther. Experts warn that his ultimate goal isn't just the Donbass, but a complete overhaul of Ukraine itself. This isn't about liberation, it's about domination, control, and rewriting borders. At the 2025 St. Petersburg Economic Forum, Putin made a striking declaration. He claimed that Ukraine is part of Russia, emphasizing the unity of Russian and Ukrainian peoples. His words sent shockwaves through international circles. Is this an honest statement, or a veiled warning? Many analysts suspected Putin's long-term strategy, an expansion driven by imperial ambitions. His speeches hinted at it. His actions confirmed it. He's spoken openly about creating buffer zones along the border, transforming Ukraine into a satellite state. His vision? A second Belarus, an entity with a facade of independence but firmly under Russian influence. Imagine a nation that looks like Ukraine but operates like an extension of Russia. The idea isn't new, and experts like Guillaume Duval, from a major European think tank, have detailed Vladimir Putin's true intentions. Why target Ukraine? It's not just the regions beside Russia that matter. The devastated Donbass, long ravaged by conflict, now holds little economic value. Infrastructure reduced to rubble, industries obsolete, utilities in crisis. The real prize for Putin is more strategic. Control over Crimea and the Sea of Azov bolster Russia's imperial reach. Yet, even these gains pale compared to his ultimate goal, regenerating Ukraine as a puppet state, fully integrated into Russia's sphere of influence. Power is at the heart of this conflict. Not just national pride, but the aspiration to be the unrivaled world ruler. Putin's thirst for dominance compels him to pursue total conquest, fueling his refusal to negotiate peace, even as losses mount and international pressure intensifies. Each move on the battlefield reveals that his ambition knows no bounds. The question remains, how much longer can he sustain this relentless drive before it spirals out of control? The conflict in Ukraine has stretched far beyond initial expectations, catching the world by surprise. Even Vladimir Putin, the architect of Russia's vast power, finds himself faced with an unforeseen crisis. His mighty nation, once boasting the world's largest landmass, is now grappling with humiliating setbacks while Ukraine defies all odds. How did a smaller country, with a fraction of Russia's military budget, manage to withstand repeated attacks and turn the tide against an invading superpower? The answer lies in resilience, strategy, and a desire to protect their homeland. Yet, despite the mounting losses, Putin remains stubbornly committed to his original plan. Why? Because for him, this isn't just about territory. It's about dominance. The war initially claimed to be about protecting eastern regions, supposedly saving civilians from a dangerous regime. But as months turned into years, his rhetoric shifted. He began hinting that Ukraine itself belonged to Russia, an extension of their homeland, a rightful part of the empire. In 2025, he boldly declared that all of Ukraine was ours, fostering fears of total conquest. His soldiers continued to invade and bombard cities across the entire nation, all to fulfill a vision of a greater Russia. Regions like Kiev and Kharkiv suffered relentless attacks, even though his words focused on eastern territories. It became clear, Putin's true goal wasn't merely about protecting Russian-speaking enclaves. It's about rewriting history, reclaiming Ukraine entirely. He dreams of connecting Crimea with the mainland, creating a seamless land corridor. Gaining control over the Sea of Azov, and turning Ukraine into a puppet state almost indistinguishable from Belarus, these are his ultimate ambitions. To him, these are not just territorial gains, they are symbols of power and legacy. His real desire? To cement his influence forever. To carve out an empire so vast that no neighboring power can threaten him. And as long as his forces make even small gains, he refuses to back down. His obsession with control pushes him onward, even as the world watches in horror. But why does he refuse peace? Why risk further destruction and chaos? Perhaps it's the need to leave a mark, a legacy of power that outlives his own lifetime. Or maybe it's about preventing Ukraine from joining Western alliances, like NATO, who could rapidly turn his borders into a front line against Russia itself. Putin perceives these alliances as existential threats. If Ukraine were to join NATO, backed by the full force of the Western military might, the balance of power would shift dangerously. That can't be allowed. So, he chose war over diplomacy, a gamble that could reshape the entire world order. And what about the false narrative spun by Russia? His access to information is tightly controlled. He relies on top intelligence agencies, like the Federal Security Service, to keep him updated. Yet, how accurate are those reports? Putin's a master manipulator. Over the years, he's rewritten Russia's laws, silenced opposition, and repressed dissent. Opposition figures who dared challenge him, like Navalny, disappeared or suffered tragic fates. Even members of his own government sometimes end up dead. This climate of fear ensures he hears only what he wants. In such a dark environment, common sense and truth become casualties. His advisors, fearing for their lives, tell him only rosy stories, paint a picture of victory, progress, and unstoppable power. Could he be blinded to the real situation? Does he truly believe his own propaganda? This disconnect might explain his stubborn refusal to accept peace. If he fully understood how disastrous the war has become, how many soldiers have fallen, how much infrastructure remains in ruins, would he still cling to this ruinous path? Or is he deliberately stubborn, driven by a thirst for everlasting dominion? Every choice, every delay, seems calculated. Putin's quest for dominance isn't just about Ukraine. It's about solidifying a legacy of unchecked power, an empire that can't be stopped. The question remains, as the world watches this unending conflict, will he ever choose to abandon his obsession for conquest? Or is the only ending a deadly standoff with his own fading empire? The problem lies with Putin himself. As a dictator, he's repeatedly violated the constitutional laws that once defined Russia's governance. He's reshaped laws and political systems to extend his grip on power indefinitely. Elections have been manipulated, media silenced, opposition silenced or eliminated, and human rights shattered repeatedly. Opponents, critics, and even members of his inner circle face arrest, imprisonment, or death. Notable opposition figures like Boris Nemtsov and Alexei Navalny have been targeted. In July 2025, former Transport Minister Roman Starovoyt was found dead just hours after Putin dismissed him, an ominous pattern. Such brutal purges echo Stalin's darkest days, sowing fear across the nation. Even loyal elites and career military officers live under Putin's unpredictable shadow. Their lives hang in the balance, depending on his whims. In this atmosphere of terror and control, courage fades. Self-preservation becomes a lever of survival. Some are so desperate to keep their heads that they bend the truth to fit what Putin wants to hear. Meanwhile, the outside world sees the dire reality: Russia's army suffers staggering losses, its ground gains are negligible, and morale hits rock bottom. Yet, Putin remains blissfully unaware. Those close to him prefer to paint a rosy picture, claims of victories, advances, and unstoppable might. Every whisper of truth could ignite his fury. As a result, most reports he receives are sanitized, exaggerated, or outright false. The paranoia runs deep. The question is, how long can this facade hold before the cracks begin to show? What happens when the truth finally bursts forth, and the ruler's wrath is unleashed? The stakes are higher than ever. The entire war effort continues to be spun as a series of grand successes, even amid the chaos of recent months. Imagine the atmosphere inside the Kremlin, an echo chamber where truth is masked by carefully crafted stories. The smell of stale air, the deafening hum of propaganda loud enough to drown out the reality of shattered tanks and fallen soldiers. Putin's inner circle feeds him narratives that paint a picture of unstoppable progress. Reports are tailored to flatter his ego, victories exaggerated, setbacks hidden. The sounds of hurried conversations, whispered warnings drowned by official declarations of triumph. His closest advisors, like General Valery Gerasimov, parade fabricated victories, claiming vast territorial gains that no credible source confirms. In October 2025, Gerasimov confidently announced that Russian forces had captured over 70% of Vovchansk. Yet, independent analysts from the Institute for the Study of War sharply refuted the claim, saying only around 23% had been seized. Even veteran military bloggers questioned the misinformation. But here lies the critical question: what does Putin truly believe? If his advisors consistently present a distorted version of reality, understating casualties, inflating victories, how can he possibly see the need to end the conflict? His mind is a fortress, constructed from carefully curated lies. He sees a war on the brink of victory, believing Ukrainian resistance will crumble under relentless pressure. Every speech, every televised statement reinforces this illusion. But what happens when the truth finally snatches its way into his subconscious? Will he finally confront the nightmare he's been blind to? Or will he drown the truth in even thicker layers of deception? The stakes have never been higher, because inside that fragile bubble, the next move could reshape history forever. Imagine this: a leader isolated in his grand Kremlin halls, surrounded by echoing marble floors that amplify every whisper of doubt, yet hearing only echoes of triumph. The air thick with the scent of polished wood and stale cigar smoke, as advisors tiptoe around the truth, their hearts pounding with fear. In our last look, we uncovered how misinformation shields Vladimir Putin from the war's grim realities. His inner circle, gripped by terror of reprisal, paints a rosy picture of battlefield glories, even as Russian forces falter. This deception fuels his unyielding belief in an imminent victory, where Ukrainian defenses crumble under relentless assault. Through fiery speeches, Putin mocks the world's delusions, insisting Russia's path is clear and dominant. But what if this bubble of lies is about to burst, revealing a far darker gamble? What shocking revelation could shatter Putin's iron grip on reality? Picture him striding confidently before crowds, voice booming like thunder over Red Square, declaring Russia's triumphs while the crowd's cheers mask their quiet desperation, the chill wind carrying hints of economic frostbite. Yet, deep down, does he sense the fragility, the way his trusted voices twist facts to survive his wrath? It's heartbreaking, isn't it? These men, once loyal patriots, now cower like shadows in the dim glow of his office lamps, fabricating stories of unstoppable advances to avoid the sting of his fury. And this same veil of illusion drapes over Russia's finances too. Economic experts, their palms sweaty with anxiety, downplay the rot eating at the nation's core, the relentless bite of Western restrictions that squeeze like an unyielding vice. They whisper half-truths, insisting stability holds firm, when cracks spiderweb through the foundation, threatening collapse. This web of deceit crafts a dangerous illusion, convincing Putin his hold on power is unbreakable, far stronger than the crumbling truth suggests. We've witnessed this pattern unfold across the conflict's bloody timeline, haven't we? Time and again, he boasts of an economy defying all odds, a fortress unbreached, even as the rest of the world crumbles under pressure, or so he claims. But twist, what if those very boasts are the screams of a regime teetering on the edge? Financial leaders nod along, rarely voicing the nightmare. Recession looms like a storm cloud, dark and inevitable, especially if the massive outpouring on defenses persists unchecked. Feel the tension building, the metallic tang of impending crisis in the air? It's as if the entire Kremlin vibrates with unspoken dread, every report a fragile thread holding back the flood. Now, dive deeper into Reason 3, Putin's desperate all-in wager. Envision the war as a high-stakes card game in a smoke-filled chamber, cards slapping against velvet tables, the air heavy with sweat and ambition. Putin has bet it all, pouring hundreds of billions into this endless fray. Defense surges ahead as Russia's dominant force, a roaring engine drowning out the groans of struggling fields, agriculture wilting under barren skies, mines echoing with hollow silence, factories grinding to a rusty halt. Meanwhile, those crafting the tools of strife, bombs humming with lethal promise, drones slicing through the night like silent predators, systems of conflict booming with unnatural prosperity, reap rewards like never before. In the years ahead, Russia plans to channel around 40% of its federal budget solely into this voracious beast. But here's the gut-wrenching twist: can a nation survive betting its soul on endless confrontation, or will it devour itself from within? The weight of that commitment crushes like an avalanche of iron, burying alternatives under layers of inevitability. The Kremlin, once a symbol of unassailable might, now feels the tremor of overreach, the cold seep of doubt through vaulted ceilings. Why push further when retreat could save the empire? Yet Putin clings, his vision blurred by the haze of sunk costs, ignoring the pleas of an economy gasping for breath. Sensory chaos engulfs, the distant rumble of production lines masking the silence of empty markets, the bitter aftertaste of rationed hopes. This gambit isn't just strategy, it's a legacy etched in fire, demanding total victory or utter ruin. But what hidden fracture in this bet could topple everything, leaving Putin exposed to the world's unforgiving gaze? Imagine a ruthless dictator trapped in his gilded cage, clinging to delusions of grandeur as his empire crumbles around him. The blood-soaked fields of Ukraine whisper tales of failure, where a tiny nation humiliates a superpower, shredding its budget and mocking its pretensions on the world stage. Vladimir Putin stares down defeat, his ego bruised, his grip slipping. Yet he scoffs at peace, refusing to sit and talk. Why? Let's dive in and unravel the twisted mind that won't let go. From the start, this war spun far beyond the borders of Donetsk and Luhansk. Putin painted it as a noble rescue mission against imaginary Nazis in the east, protecting Russian-speaking souls from genocide. He vowed to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine, to bring war criminals to trial. But soon, his words twisted like a serpent in the shadows. In June 2024, at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, he dropped a bombshell. I've said many times that I consider the Russian and Ukrainian peoples to be one people. In this sense, all of Ukraine is ours. Shocking, right? Annexing Kherson, Zaporizhia, and Crimean corridors? Mere appetizers. Putin craves domination, a puppet Ukraine like Belarus, a silent extension of his realm. Expert Guillaume Duval nails it: the Donetsk slag heaps, ravaged by war, offer no riches, obsolete coal mines, ruined factories, water shortages. No, this is imperialism's hunger. Power over the Azov Sea, buffer zones against the West. If Russia hadn't struck, Ukraine might join the EU, snuggle with NATO, a dagger at Moscow's heart. So he invades, but loses ground. Ukraine counters, wins humiliations. Putin can't admit defeat, his pride forbids it. Hubris blinds him, like a fog over Moscow's icy towers. But pride alone? No. Picture Putin's inner circle, the FSB cronies trembling under his gaze. This autocrat defies constitutions, rigs votes, jails foes, purges like Stalin's ghosts. Boris Nemtsov assassinated in 2015. Alexei Navalny, poisoned and imprisoned till death in early 2025. Even elites vanish. Transport Minister Roman Starovoyt found dead hours after firing in July 2025. Fear rules. Generals report rosy illusions to survive. The world sees carnage, over 1 million dead by summer 2026, frontlines stalemated. Putin hears victories, steamrolling forces, no losses in vain. Misinformation feeds his madness, a cocoon of lies spun by terrified men. Does he know the stench of defeat, the crunch of shattered machinery, the screams drowning in artillery thunder? Unlikely. They lie to save their skins. How much longer can these charades hold? Twisting deeper into despair. What if ending the war sparked worse nightmares? Russia's war machine roars as its #1 industry, bombs humming, drones buzzing, weapons gleaming. While farming wilts, mines choke, manufacturing stalls, defense eats the pie. By 2027, 40% of the federal budget drowns in tanks and terrorists, guns booming instead of bread. Recession lurks, but conflict masks the decay. Endless paychecks to impoverished soldiers keep the peace, subsidies shielding rising bread costs. Stop now? The machine halts abruptly, jobs vanish, exposes the wreckage. Infrastructure crumbles. Bridges groaning under neglect, cities sagging with potholes. Social storms brew, eligible voters enraged, ready to topple Putin's throne. Healthcare creaks under the strain, veterans flooding home, scarred by shells. Post-traumatic stress haunts their dreams, cold sweats, flashbacks of gunfire cracking the night. Suicides climb, drugs and booze numb the pain. Chronic plagues fester. HIV diagnoses soaring, hepatitis lurking in shadows. Can a nation absorb these broken souls? Many turn abusive, fists flying in dark alleys, voices razor-sharp with rage. Few contribute anymore, economy gasping, unity fraying. Putin stares into the abyss, end the war, and the facade shatters. His cover slips away. Russians awake to squalor, empty wallets, hollow futures. Humiliation mounts, from global taunts to domestic fury. Will he risk it all, or gamble for total control? The battlefield reeks of deceit. Ukraine's counterpunch stings, economies bleed, societies teeter. Putin, the hubris king, fed on fabrications, trapped in a war he can't afford to quit. But whispers grow, of veterans' cries echoing in neglected hospitals, of drones falling silent. What if peace uncovers a revolution? An unexpected twist, the very bloodshed sustaining him could forge his downfall. Stay tuned, the threads unravel further. The return home for soldiers who fought in Ukraine is a silent tragedy unfolding behind closed doors. Many of them come back scarred, mentally, physically, and the toll is devastating. War leaves deep wounds, not just on the battlefield but within their minds. Many struggle with trauma, depression, and severe mental health issues, turning to drugs and alcohol to numb the pain. The scars of battle don't end there. Reports reveal that many soldiers are battling chronic illnesses like HIV and hepatitis, diseases that compromise their health and well-being for years. The healthcare system is overwhelmed, unable to fully address this crisis. The burden is heavy. As the wounded pour back into society, a grim reality emerges: many will never reintegrate. Some will become abusive, violent, or simply vanish into obscurity, lost in the shadows of their own suffering. The chaos doesn't stop with individual soldiers. This wave of trauma hits the nation hard, straining hospitals and social services. The economy, already battered by war, faces a new crisis, an invisible one. Thousands unfit for work, unable to contribute, pushing the country closer to collapse. The country's leadership seems blind to the mounting toll, focused instead on prolonging conflict. Meanwhile, the global picture complicates further. Russia's desperation to sustain its war effort has led to dangerous dependencies. As Western nations sever ties and impose sanctions, Russia leans heavily on China and India, biggest buyers of Russian resources. The reliance deepens daily. China especially becomes crucial, supplying essential goods, energy, and economic lifelines. Putin's grip is slipping, nations whisper about him turning into a puppet of Beijing. His imperial ambitions clash with this reality. The nuclear arsenal and the grand visions of power mask a vulnerable nation dependent on one major partner. for Xi Jinping, the prolonged war is a gift. It distracts Western powers, shields China's ambitions, and potentially paves the way for bold moves in Asia, like a takeover of Taiwan. Every day Ukraine remains in chaos grants China time and space to expand its influence. NATO's resources are diverted, leaving the Indo-Pacific weaker, more isolated. This intricate web of dependencies paints a stark picture. The war drags on not just because of ideology or pride, but because it serves a bigger game, one that could reshape the world order. The question remains, will Putin's obsession with victory and influence hold long enough to turn this crucible of conflict into a new global reality? Imagine the bitter chill of a Moscow winter, heavy boots crunching over frosted ground as soldiers return, their faces etched with the ghosts of trenches where blood soaked the earth. Can you feel the weight of unspoken horrors, the acrid stench of gunpowder clinging to their uniforms? In the previous segment, we delved into China's brewing influence, where the war drains NATO's attention, diverting arms and aid from the Indo-Pacific, allowing Beijing to weave stronger ties with Russia amid Vladimir Putin's vulnerabilities, fueling its own ambitions in Asia. Now, picture China seizing this advantage to fortify its economy, turning Russia's desperation into a ladder for global dominance. What if the war isn't just Russia's nightmare but China's calculated distraction? In the stark reality of power politics, the conflict benefits the East immensely, keeping the world's gaze fixed on Europe's turmoil while Xi Jinping pushes his own agenda. He won't let it end because a protracted struggle masks China's maneuvers, perhaps even enabling a daring strike on Taiwan, a shocking gamble that could reshape Asia overnight. Oh, the irony, a war meant to preserve Russia's pride instead chains it to Beijing's whims. Yet, the twist deepens when we consider potential peace brokered by a figure like Donald Trump, a lightning bolt that could redraw maps and humiliate Xi by boosting America's standing, bridging divides with the West. Does China secretly crave eternal chaos to prevent such awakening? Though public statements plead for resolution, whispers in shadowy halls likely demand the opposite. Ensuring Russia stays entangled. Smell the damp mildew of crumbling alliances, as sanctions tighten like a noose, every thread frayed by betrayal and deceit. All these threads, ambition, distraction, control, weave a tapestry keeping Vladimir Putin entrenched, his motivations a twisted knot resistant to peace. Any fragile talks shatter under this assault, leaving only ruin. The path to closure demands not diplomacy but utter military humiliation, relentless pressures crushing the Kremlin like an avalanche burying ambition. As Russia fractures, its leader frantically hides the cracks, denying the inevitable collapse. But here's the jaw-dropping revelation, the twist that could unleash revolution. What if secret operatives from Ukraine, masters of sabotage, are sowing seeds of destruction far beyond the front lines, exploiting cracks in Putin's empire with covert strikes that weave sabotage, intelligence gambits, and hidden rebellions? Dive into our full exposé on Russia's shatter, where NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg warns bluntly of a nation teetering on bankruptcy, depleted forces, and vanishing strategies. Witness the covert war within, Ukraine's shadow warriors dismantling empires from inside, turning despair into defiance. Feel the pulse of revenge, the metallic tang of victory in the air. Will this explosive undercurrent finally topple the giant, or will hubris prevail? Stay tuned, as the world holds its breath.